Knock Knock by WhyNotFly. Read by Charlie Golightly. The door to Elias's room is closed. John had closed it himself. That's how this needs to begin. That's how it always begins. John had asked for this. John wants this. It begins like this. A shaky breath to try and soothe the jelly in his knees. A subtle twisting of his hips against the confusing mix of fear and arousal. Trembling fingers coming together in spite of themselves to clench into a pale fist. He's sweating. Too hot, too cold, and they haven't even begun yet. He can't fall apart before it's even begun. After all, it begins like this, with a whimper of fear so soft it might as well be silent, and John's knuckles against the wood of the door looming before him. It begins with knock knock. The door swings open, quick and fluid, and John knows Elias has been waiting there for him. John asked for him to be there, and he is, framed in the doorway like a manor lord with his blood-red robe and his black silk slippers. He's ever so slightly taller than John, and he is gazing down at him, dark and hungry, and John is sinking into the floor. John feels like he barely comes up to Elias's knees beneath that gaze. Just a child again. Helpless. "Hello there, little fly," Elias says, the tip of his tongue flicking wet along his bottom lip. John is paralyzed, watching the tips of his teeth flicker in and out of sight as he speaks, catching yellow in the lamplight. "Won't you come in?" John doesn't respond. He can't dig the words out from beneath the frostbitten panic in his throat, but he takes the hand Elias offers and allows himself to be led into the bedroom. So familiar, and yet in this moment, John can see nothing but monsters pooling in the shadowed corners. In the dim light, his skin glitters with sweat. "What have you brought for me, little fly?" Elias cups John's cheeks with his hands. "I see no present. What a rude guest you are to bring no present." The shaking spreads uncontrollably, spasming out from his stomach into his limbs, until Elias grabs his wrists tight to hold them steady. John cannot speak, cannot defend himself. His brain twists inward, trying in vain to remember if he had heard the door click shut behind him, trying to gauge if he could make a break for it. But Elias is staring at him with twin adder eyes, and he cannot turn away. There, no need to be frightened. I'm not upset. I see now that you have brought me a very good present indeed." Elias releases John's wrists, and they hang there in space, as unmoving as a chunk of lifeless marble. His skin is jaundiced in the light, the stark peaks of his knuckles casting strange shadows, and for a moment John wonders whose hands they could be. Surely they do not belong to him. Elias begins to untie the belt of his robe. He moves slowly, so slowly that it is almost a cruelty, forcing John to accept the betrayal of his legs and his stomach. He isn't even trying to escape. Leisurely, deliberately, Elias winds the soft restraint around and around John's helplessly obedient wrists, binding them tightly all the way to the elbow. "There," Elias says again, smoothing a proprietary finger across John's cheek. "Don't you look pretty in my web?" All John wants to do is close his eyes, and let even a tiny part of himself escape from this all-consuming terror that is built up around him like snowdrifts. But he cannot even do that. He is locked into Elias's greedy eye contact as he is pulled in closer. He is cornered. He is craning his neck to stare up into the glittering yellow light reflecting off Elias's teeth. He's just a child, too young to die. Something indescribable cracks its way out of John's throat as he feels the slow glide of Elias's tongue up the side of his throat. Not a scream, not a whimper, not a moan, just the noise of an animal who is beyond the point of trying. He will be eaten. There is nothing he can do. When Elias bites rough into his collarbone, John's hips buck. Just once. He's hard against Elias's thigh. He can feel it, and a sickness roils through his gut. He wanted this. He read the book, didn't he? He knocked on the door. What a delicious present, Elias whispers hot against John's skin, his tongue slipping into the folds of his ear in between each word. But I want more. Red, John barely breathes, his voice struggling through the choking panic and the thick glut of tears rising in his throat. Red, 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 red. As if a spell has been released, John's trembling legs give out under him, and Elias barely manages to catch him in time to help ease them both down to the ground. John sobs in a breath, still babbling out red, even as Elias shushes and soothes him, unwinding the binding from around his hands. Hush, John, you're all right. It's all right, it's just me. I've got you. As soon as John's hands are free, he collapses forward into Elias's embrace, burying his face in Elias's shoulder and shaking against him as he cries. Elias doesn't try to move him, doesn't even complain about the snot and spit that John is certainly getting on his nice velvet robe. He just rocks them gently back and forth and tangles his fingers in John's hair. You're safe, Elias murmurs into the side of John's head. You're safe. I've got you. John grasps uselessly at the back of Elias's robe, clinging to the soft fabric with the grip of a dying man. The tears just keep coming, keep shaking out of him again and again, rising up from parts of him so deep he didn't even realize they were there, resolving into incomprehensible sobs and half-formed words, lost in the smooth edge of Elias's skin. As he finally calms, he can feel Elias kissing him, gentle presses of his lips all up and down the curve of John's skull. John sniffles in a bit of calm, and focuses on the gentle rhythm of it, trying to match it with his stuttering breath. I'm sorry, he whispers, when he can finally manage the words. Whatever for, Elias hums, more vibration than words. I asked for this. John's eyes are already closed, but he wishes he could close them more. He wishes he could stop existing. I was the one who wanted to try this, and I didn't even last a full minute. I'm pathetic. Not the adjective I'd choose for the man who came face to face with a fear when he was only a child, and devoted the rest of his life to hunting them down. He could have run away. I did run away, John says. I left that boy to die, so that you could survive and make your way to me. Elias squeezes John tight to his chest. I'm very grateful to that boy for giving us the chance to meet. John chokes out a deeply inappropriate chuckle. What a horrible thing to say. You're in my arms right now, Elias says, pulling John in until their foreheads press tight together. How horrible can the world be?